how did you decide to make the leap to start the fund?
As you know, so much delusion. I don't have a better answer for that. I think to launch your own fund or to start your own company for that matter, it does. It requires a level of delusion. But I think if you really knew what you were getting yourself into, no sane person would ever do it. I feel lucky to get to do what I do. I always say if I
Yeah.
was a billionaire, I would still do this every day for as many hours as I do because it's just like this. I'm obsessed with this.
Right. So I think what you're saying is there is no alternative to leading wellness growth ventures.
I, I, those are the words I should have used. You're 100% right.
Welcome to the There Is No Alternative podcast, where I talk to founders, investors, and experts in the consumer world. I'm Tina Bou-Saba, founder of CXT Investments, where I invest in consumer brands and technology. Today, we are joined by Rachel Hirsch, founder of seed fund Wellness Growth Ventures. Rachel is an expert in wellness, an ambassador for Lululemon, and a community leader. These days, it feels like wellness is eating the world. I'm so excited to get Rachel's take on what's going on in this space. Welcome, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to start off with a really easy question, which is, what is wellness?
Okay, well, I'm going to give two answers. One
Love
is
it.
for how we define it at Wellness Growth Ventures, and one is how I view it from a world
Love it.
perspective. My perspective is wellness is not just eating everything, it is everything. It should be everything from like the paint on your walls to the food in your fridge. Wellness Growth Ventures, as you mentioned, is a seed fund, and we're like on the smaller side. So our thesis and the way in which we view wellness is much more narrow than that. But the hope is, obviously as wellness continues to evolve and the fund expands, that it will continue to, hopefully, those two definitions will meet.
I love it. So what do you look at? What types of things do you invest in?
Yeah, so I think of it as like a Venn diagram of three circles where we do better for you CPG, call it food, bev, beauty. We'll do four wall, so think fitness, IRL, in-person wellness. And then we'll also do health tech, but it's really where all of that meets. So arguably right at the consumer, right at the end user.
Got it. Okay. And when did you first get interested in this?
I was always a little bit of like the crunchy hippie on Wall Street. I used to wear my Toms to the trading floor and like brew my own kombucha because that's how old I am. So that was just always my identity. But I've loved numbers from childhood. So it was always a struggle to figure out how to sort of merge the two loves. But even when I was on Wall Street, when I was at like Tiger Global, for example, I was there during their Peloton era, which you could really argue is their wellness era, even though that's not how it was described. And it wasn't until business school that I started to get earlier and earlier into from an investing stage perspective that I realized, oh, there's so much here that I could start doing and really integrating now. So yeah, I think sort of forever, but Wellness Growth Ventures launched 4-ish years ago now.
And how did you decide to make the leap to start the fund?
As you know, so much delusion. I don't have a better answer for that. I think to launch your own fund or to start your own company for that matter, it does. It requires a level of delusion. But I think if you really knew what you were getting yourself into, no sane person would ever do it. I had a lot of people who believed in me, and I 100% with confidence can say I didn't believe in myself enough. So without them, I wouldn't be here. But they thought that I could do it and I could figure it out. And I made so many expensive mistakes, but I have learned from them and I think has made me sharper now. And I think most founders go through that. But yeah, I would say it's a lot of delusion and a lot of passion. Like as soon as I start talking about this, you can tell a change in my voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share any of those learning mistakes from the early days?
Where to even begin? This is maybe a controversial moment, but I think that so much of what I learned was my lack of confidence in who I am, what I deserve, and what I needed. So even in terms of like my diligence process early on, because I'm writing a smaller check, I didn't want to be too bothersome and I didn't want to ask for too much. If I'm writing a check and they don't want to share that information, that's totally fine, but I'm not the right investor for them. And that's okay. But I have every right to ask for this information, whether my check be small or not. And so a lot of mistakes really stemmed from that, where it was, I knew that I should be receiving this information and I would get a no. And I knew that I wanted in on the deal. So maybe, more blind trust than should have happened. Or I think I've just gotten more confident with who I am now and what what is right. And I've gotten more confident walking away from deals that aren't right, even for the smallest reason. Even when I think really confidently I could make a lot of money, I I would rather say no to the deals where I could have made a lot of money, but there was risk than say, am I making sense there? Than saying yes to a deal that ends up being such a miss, if that makes sense.
That's really interesting. So tell us more about like just what stage of companies you look at, right now in this phase of wellness growth ventures.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for us because we're starting to see a maturity piece from our earliest
Mm,
investments, and we're starting to see some secondary opportunities come in. But again, we're writing smaller checks, which means that we either have to hold until fruition or we really have to sell the entirety of our
yeah.
position, which is interesting and vastly different from much larger funds. But I say outwardly we invest at the $3 million mark.
Yeah.
Sort of a catch-all because obviously, a CPG business is vastly different than a health tech business, than a four-wall business, but that's typically, I think, where we like to play.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that this is a really interesting point on the secondary opportunities, and I feel like that's just seeing more of those as it's a long time, right? When you're investing,
Yeah,
it's a long, long time. It's tricky, thinking about
right.
how to approach those.
Totally. And even because it is such a long time frame and because people have struggled with liquidity the past few years,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting topic to discover in terms of like fund strategy and identifying who we are with fund strategy.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. I mean, I look at it as an investor. I had opportunities to sell in these types of situations, over the past few years. And I generally, for my investments, I generally have not. Um, but I think that, sometimes I think maybe I should have, right? Like we were thinking, oh, this company will exit in the next year or two, but then this liquidity drought has continued. And it's like, maybe, held on for too long, but it's impossible to know.
It's just like in the market. I always say I was never a day trader. I was like the Warren
Yeah.
Buffett style investor.
Yeah.
It's not that different here.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. So what do you look for when people are pitching you for new investments?
I think especially when it's early stage, it's the founder, and I want to get to know them very well
Yeah.
because they're going to have to pivot dozens of times before they really hit their stride. And I honestly, I say this and I get some weird looks, but I want to know the worst version of them because we're inevitably going to hit hurdles, and how they show up in those times is never going to be their best self. So I want to know how they handle stress. I want to know like who they rely on. Will they come to their investors and say, hey, we need help now? You're going to be told no more times than yes. I mean, through the fundraising process alone, but throughout beyond. What do you do when your velocity is down? What do you do when you can't increase your margins? So I just want to know the grittiness and the morality, I guess, of the founder, because this investment process can take longer than some marriages last.
Mm.
And it's hard to get out of. You can't get a divorce like you can in marriage. And so, how do you really build that trust? And I think so much of it is building rapport with a founder.
Yeah. And how do you do that?
I think this goes back to time
Yeah.
and demanding time with founder, requesting time with founder. And again, sometimes they're not willing to give it. And I totally respect that. Like, if we're not writing their lead check, then it might not be feasible. But then the other side to that is, well, maybe I have really good rapport with their lead and understanding from a
Mhm.
secondary perspective. Okay, like I have all these questions. I want to understand how the founder ticks. Can you explain it? So
That's
there are ways that we can work as a ecosystem for that solve. But I think you and I had this conversation of the lead, and there aren't always leads, but the lead does really matter because
yeah.
so your relationship with the lead in terms of the decision making and how they'll handle the hard situations, I think is vastly important as well.
I totally agree. It seems to me, I don't know that this is true, but it seems to me that with consumer businesses where companies, the goal is not like an IPO, most likely,
Right.
right? It seems to me that it matters even more. I don't know if that's true, but because I think in tech, like the goal is IPO. Anything else, I know you've got these huge companies like Stripe that are private forever, but like for the most part, right? It's IPO. And so that's known, right? Like that you're investing, your success is IPO. I feel like with with consumer brands or other businesses where it is not likely, like that isn't the ultimate definition of success, there's all these decision points along the way. And you have to feel good that there's a pretty good alignment around that.
I couldn't agree more. I think especially because it's like, at what point do you hire a banker? At what point are
Yeah.
you not building the business just to make sense from an EBITDA perspective, but
Right.
from a strategic perspective? And I think that's often the miss when, listen, there are so many reasons to not take VC money, and I am supportive of all of those reasons, but there is massive value in working with a big fund who has these relationships with the strategics. Like,
Mm,
exactly what they want, because it's you can Google it, but it's ever changing. What a strategic wants today and yesterday are two totally different conversations.
great point.
And that's hugely valuable. So bankers can be hugely valuable, at least having
Yeah.
the conversations early on. And you have to have a founder that understands that. And maybe that comes from their board of advisors, maybe that comes from
Mhm.
their investors. But yeah, I agree with you that it matters more.
So, as an investor, what's interesting to you today? What is particularly exciting to you?
I still think we're in the early innings of GLP-1, so secondary treasury markets to that are super interesting to me. I'm not interested in like going into a space competitive with it, but there are so many repercussions of this mass market GLP-1 and the longevity of being on them that I think are really intriguing. And the most intriguing part, I would argue, is that the demographic of that arguably really majority coincides with the menopause demo and what those side effects are. So I think that that's almost just like one huge category that gets really interesting,
Mhm.
which then takes us into hormone care, which is hugely interesting. And I think we've done such a good job of a diagnostic, maybe, but not such like solution forward. So I think that is an interesting space. Listen, I think even in like period care, we haven't really seen real innovation there. And
Mm.
a clean tampon, I am so here for, but I want some real innovation there, and I don't know what it would be, but I'm intrigued by that.
Mhm.
I think a shelf stable, like better for you Ensure, like what your grandma's drinking in
Yeah.
like her old folks' home. Like
Yeah.
Alex Earl should come out with one. Shelf stable is so sexy, and I think that there's such a demand when you're talking again about this proliferation of GLP-1s, skincare when it comes to that. I mean, I could go on for days.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned Alex Earl, and one of the things that I think is really interesting right now, and like it's interesting to me that was what you called out, is breaking through and like attention, and how do brands get attention in this like super crowded space? Creators being one way. What are your thoughts on that? What are you seeing?
Well, I think because everyone has some sort of science component now, and I like mean
Mm,
that in air quotes, that
mhm.
that is no longer a differentiator. Being on a Sephora shelf is no longer a
Right.
differentiator. And I think I might get hate for this one. I think traditional PR and media are not as useful as they are. And I mean, even when you look at the way in which big companies are spending their media dollars, it is towards creators. It's not
Yeah.
towards the more traditional outlets that it used to be. Um, Now, what's challenging is these creators are promoting dozens of products, and what's the efficacy there? But that's what makes it interesting when someone like an Alex Earl comes out with a product herself. Lemmy, perfect example.
Yeah.
Like that, who cares about the efficacy? Their consumer doesn't, but it's
Yeah.
flying off. Like they can't keep it in stock. So I think that's an interesting one that is still going to have to evolve just given the saturation there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you though. It's amazing. I mean, even over the past like 5 or 6 years, it's changed so
Oh,
much.
yeah.
Right. You can't really launch without it's like some attention edge.
Right, yeah, and it can be really expensive.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Another thing so I was looking at your LinkedIn. You do such a great job with it. By the way, really, really interesting. What you were talking about the fact that you do not have an Apple Watch, and nor do I. I think for similar reasons, but tell me more about that.
There is just, like, a gap to me. We are so inundated with data, and to me, knowing how many steps I took, it doesn't just clear my schedule, it doesn't necessarily even really motivate me to walk more, and is that the end result? I think there's such a dopamine hit that people get from, call it, closing their rings or whatever that it might be
Yeah.
scenario because of the gamification, which there's so much value in the gamification of getting people engaged, and yet I think that dopamine hit almost makes it like yet another screen without causing the right steps. It's like you need a project manager. I have all of this data. I know everything. I got my blood work done. What do I do with it? I need that data to flow endlessly. And so I think once Peloton and Aura Ring integrate and Peloton really gets their AI down, well, then great. They're going to see how I slept. They're going to adjust my training program based on how I slept so that it's purely personalized for me to have a workout based on how my body's doing that day. Until then, I don't know how useful it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have similar sentiment that both the what do I do with all of this information, and then also I feel like if you have a sort of like more obsessive personality type like I do, it can become like an unhealthy obsession, like have to close the ring, It's like I don't want that.
Not bless my father, but he is just like both of us. And he was laying in bed. His whoop was telling him to stay in bed until 7. Well, he gets up at 5 just naturally. So he was like going crazy in bed because his whoop, and we had to throw it out. Like that wasn't making him healthier at the ripe age of 74.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So much information, but what do we do with it?
Right. And is it actually indicative? Again, like I think that's the big miss on whoop. It's telling a 74-year-old man to stay in bed longer, but is that based on his biological clock? Does that make sense? Is that right for him and as an individual? Maybe generally, but I think there's just this like personalization miss that we're still seeing.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity there, but still kind of just scratching the surface.
For sure.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is like makes you such a great investor is that you really like live and breathe your space, broadly wellness, right? As you said, you've been interested in it for a long time. And so I'm interested in hearing more about the related things that you're involved in. So one being the 2% Club. What is that? Tell me more about that.
Our job as investors, you know this best, is just to meet like brilliant people in this space.
Yeah.
And I'm actually hypo introverted. Yeah. So I at one point was like, you all are so smart and I want to introduce you to you and you to you. I threw everyone in a Slack and I was like, just be friends. And what happens when you throw really motivated, brilliant women in a Slack is no one just sits. Everyone starts chatting and engaging and supporting and helping. Melissa Gelman-Weiss, who's a very good friend, she's a former CMO of Barry's. She was like, this is something we have to do. It isn't just something that we sit with. So it turned into, it's everyone from like the Julie Cartwrights of the world, the president of P-Valve, all the way through, I call them the wellness curious college girlies. And people are super engaged. We're so lucky that everyone just wants to help one another. We talk all things wellness. I mean, sometimes I'll throw out a potential investment in there and I'll be like, I need everyone's feedback. Tell me like your pros and cons. And then I have a data set like from across the world of women who are giving me feedback on these products. So it's just a really wonderful organization and I feel lucky to be a part of it.
That's terrific. And how is it set up today? Like, is it still primarily Slack? Do you do in-person stuff? What do you like doing?
Yeah. So it started as a Slack. The Slack is super active and we have like all different investors and operators and founders. So it's a really interesting perspective and dynamic in there. And then we host IRL events. So last month we did 3 in 36 hours in New York. Next week I go to Austin. We're doing another 3 in 36 hours. We did them in London this summer. So we do them all over. And it's just people showing up excited to meet. Also, often we are like really sweaty in our events. So it's a funny dynamic when you think of a networking, and I would never use the 2% Club as a networking idea. In my mind, that's just not how I view it. But you show up and you're super sweaty and you're next to someone and you're talking and all of a sudden you realize like, she's a big deal. And like, I'm just gross. And so is she though. And the conversation ends up being super authentic because of that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And totally organic. How many members?
We have like 425-ish now.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. It's really cool. I love these organic, like how it builds that way. Yeah. Okay. Well, another really cool thing that you're involved in is Lululemon. Tell me about that.
I'm very lucky. I also just happen to own yoga studios in LA. I don't really operate them, but I have a wonderful community around me. And because of that, I got really involved in the Lululemon community. And I live in LA, so it's a big city for them. And so they have they have a few offices here. And so, yeah, they've shared so many incredible opportunities with me. They've been really supportive. They appreciate that I am very immersed in this
Yeah.
space, not just from like a fitness perspective, but this is my world. Like I live
Yeah.
and breathe this every day from every aspect. So I feel really lucky to be a partner of theirs.
So cool. It's so cool. I feel like you like broke the internet when you announced that. That must be one of your like most like LinkedIn posts,
I
right?
think I kept it so separate for so long that I'm like actually really deep in the wellness space. And like I thought it almost
Yeah.
detracted from me being an investor. So that was almost like my coming out party. And I think people
Oh,
were
that's
just so
interesting.
surprised.
Yeah, yeah. But it's really, I mean, I love seeing stuff like that because I felt like my perception of it was people, because we have so much overlap, like in our, in our community,
Right.
people were genuinely really excited for you. And we're like, wow, that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, everyone was very supportive.
Yeah.
I was very nervous though.
That's funny. But I mean, I feel like, it gives you so much like credibility, I think, as an investor in this space. 'Cause like I said, you are truly immersed in it and living and breathing it.
Yeah. I feel lucky to get to do what I do. I always say if I
Yeah.
was a billionaire, I would still do this every day for as many hours as I do because it's just like this, I'm obsessed with this.
Right. So I think what you're saying is there is no alternative to leading wellness growth ventures.
I those are the words I should have used. You're 100% right because that is what was going on up here.
But it's like that I mean, when I talk to people like you, founders, whether it's of an investment firm or a company, like it is that energy, right? Like that entrepreneurial energy. This is what I have to be doing that I am just so fascinated by.
Yeah, it's a severe obsession that
Right.
my friends are very generous with me and always patient because I'm like this comes first always.
I love it. Okay. Well, because you're an expert, Rachel, I want to play a little game with you. But I'm genuinely really, really interested in there are so many wellness trends and you probably know about all of them, especially in LA. I feel like that's like the epicenter of all of
Yeah.
this. So I'm curious to get your perspective on a few of these. Okay. So you tell me like thumbs up, thumbs down, or any thoughts. Very interested. Okay.
I'm nervous.
No, 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 no. Okay. Raw milk.
I'm into it. I don't know that it's going to be like a mass market, but I think there will be a supplement route that is like bioidentical.
Interesting. Packaged protein bars.
I mean, I think they're going to make money in the next 18 months, but I think we're going to see protein fall out to the degree that it has come in, at least.
Okay. Okay. Well, on that note, fiber maxing.
I think we will see more fiber coming into play, but different than protein where there's no real repercussions if you overload on protein. If you overload on fiber, there are repercussions, friends. Like you're going to feel that for weeks.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. So funny. Injectable peptides.
I'm into them. I think
Cool.
there's dangerous, like there are dangerous bits, especially with compounding pharmacies and not totally knowing where things are coming from. But I think when used correctly, they can be incredible tools.
Okay. So in LA, are there places you can go to get peptide injections for different muscle building or different types of things beyond, of course, the GLP ones, which are peptides?
Yeah, absolutely. There are loads of places. The dangerous part that I was referring to is also like you can go online and order whatever you want and it will come to your door and you really have no traceability there and the amounts matter. Just like the amount of HRT you take really matters. And the amount of some of these peptides really can mess you up if you're not if it's not doctor observed.
Okay. Okay. So one would want to go to a legitimate
Yeah.
medical place.
Yeah.
And what do you see as beyond the GLP ones? What other popular uses are there in the wellness community, legitimate uses for like injectable peptides, for example?
I think there are so many. I mean, listen, I'm even into testosterone injections. Like I'm into all across the spectrum. I think NAD plus is really hard because it takes so long and some of the effects aren't immediate. But there's so much at play. But I still think we're such early innings of identifying from a price point perspective, from an accessibility perspective, hopefully from a government or some sort of regulatory space. I think hopefully that will be better regulated. That might be optimistic.
So interesting. Well, I was going to ask you about NAD actually. So we'll that you beat me on that one. Oh, you beat me to it. Okay. Beef tallow skincare.
I'm intrigued, but I think it's going to be a little bit like salmon sperm.
Okay. Okay. Okay, couple more. Saunas.
I love a sauna, but I grew up in Chicago and I have like PTSD from it. So that's more from like a I'm always cold
Okay.
perspective. I think it has massive benefits, just like infrared saunas when used properly.
Okay. What about inserting garlic in your nose to clean your sinuses?
I'm out on that one. That's too far for me. Like, you can mix
Okay.
a little garlic and honey in your tea if you're sick, but, like, we're done snorting things, we're too old for that.
Okay. Two more. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
I had this conversation actually earlier with another investor. Barriers too high in terms of who has an hour to give to lay horizontal with doing nothing else? No one.
Right, right. Very, very time consuming. Yes. Okay. Then last one, probiotic soda.
I mean, I think it's, like, here to stay. Do I think it has any efficacy? Like, question marks all
Mhm.
around. But I think I do. I think we're on the verge of seeing, like, the V2 of probiotic, prebiotic, postbiotic gut reparation or, like, I think we're starting to see what we've had in that space isn't efficacious enough, and I'm
Mhm.
hoping we're about to see, like, the next phase. I'm into that.
Yeah, I mean, I am super interested in it. On the funny side, you know, years ago in the 2000s in New York, my friends, I mean, we drank Diet Coke all the time, right? Like, it was like, how many Diet Cokes a day? And
Right.
when kombucha first became popular, like maybe 15 or so years ago or early 2010s, it felt like kombucha it wasn't about the probiotic as much as healthier alternative to
Totally.
diet soda. And so I think that that's probably at worst case what you get, probiotic soda. It's a healthier alternative than a chemical filled soda, but unclear if it actually has probiotic benefits. Some
That's
of
what
them
I
are pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm the biggest kombucha fan, but I drink it because I love it,
No.
not because I necessarily think I'm, like, getting healthy from it.
Right. Right. I love it also. What's your favorite kind?
So I'm really partial here. Better Booch is my favorite. I think you have that up at NorCal.
Yes, yes, we do.
They have, like, this pineapple spicy flavor that if you looked in my fridge right now, I'm a hoarder, it looks like. Buy the whole thing. I sell them, like, Whole Foods doesn't have any more right now. I just bought them all.
What are some of your other favorite things? Like wellness, like your daily wellness practices? Like, what do you swear by?
I swear by my skincare, which is
Mm.
like a rotation of things. I don't have like one go-to product, although I have really been falling in love with a new product I've been trying. I am a minimum 2-a-day kombucha girl, but I don't think that's a wellness thing. That's just I really actually like juice a lot, and I am
Mhm,
way too old to drink juice, so kombucha is almost like my replacement.
mhm,
I have a Cure hydration at least once a day. I play a lot of
mhm,
tennis, and so I sweat. And so I need that replenishment, and I like that it's, like, coconut based. Yeah, I think those are, like, my cannot live withouts, but I'm sure there's more that I'm missing.
mhm. And then from a exercise perspective, so tennis, yoga, what else?
I weightlift actually. My
Wow.
new my new thing is, like, I was such a Pilates reformer girly for so long, and I have this fear of being a brittle old woman, and so I've
Mhm,
been, like, really heavy weightlifting, which I thought was gonna be boring, and I thought that it wasn't gonna feel good in my body, but I think when you enjoy doing something, I go to a gym where it's, like, become my community, and I love seeing everyone. It has totally changed my mentality of, like, gym bro energy.
mhm. That's really nice. Yeah. It's really interesting. I joined fairly recently, like within a year or so ago, a gym up here because like I had been doing a lot of Peloton and stuff like that
Oh,
and thought, okay, I should do more weights. And what really struck me, and I know that this isn't some revelation, but it hit me is
yeah.
how much of the gym now is weights as opposed to cardio. It has
Oh,
shifted so much, like since, from even 10 years
yeah.
ago.
Well, when you start to look at even like the boutique fitness data in terms of like who's really winning now, it's such a massive change and it's so interesting to track, especially as the heavy lifting becomes more and more important with the
Mhm.
demographics of America getting so much older. So
That's really interesting. Are you an investor in any boutique fitness concepts right now?
I don't know that I'd call it boutique fitness, but I'm an
Mm.
investor in Monarch, which is a personal training meets doctor club. So I go,
Oh,
it's like my
interesting.
GP, they do my blood work, they do a body scan every 3 months. I get that done, plus personal training. So it's very holistic. It includes a nutrition plan, and it has totally changed how I view all of that data overload because I'm actually making changes in my day to day based on all of that data, but only
Wow.
because I have the support of Monarch.
And they have a physical locations
Yeah.
in your area.
So they're currently only LA. They're opening in Miami and Scottsdale soon-ish. And then
Mhm.
there will be more.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know, they're not up here. Yeah, I would be interested in something
Yeah.
like that for sure.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Next time you're down in LA, I'll take you.
Yeah, oh, I would love that. Really, really cool. Okay, so like what's on the horizon for wellness growth ventures?
Oh
What,
god.
when you look at like let's say 5 years from now, what's your vision?
This is my baby. I'm never having kids, so this is like I hope to really build it and grow it, and for me, that doesn't necessarily mean $100 million fund. It just means building a stable long-term platform, and I'm really excited that I think we're doing that and can continue to do that. I'm very lucky. I have not just brilliant LPs, but very supportive LPs who want to see that to fruition. So yeah, I think it's just about continuing to build smartly and strategically. And I'm very grateful for people like you who continue to help me along the way.
Well, I think you're crushing it, Rachel, so I believe in you. I
Thank
can't wait to see
you.
where it goes.
Thank you. I appreciate you so very much and excited to keep this conversation going.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
If you liked this episode, follow There Is No Alternative podcast on Spotify and check us out on YouTube and Instagram where we share highlights.